Okay, good morning, everyone. So my name is Dr. Julie Decker, and I'm director of RIT's Undergraduate Museum Studies program based in the College of Liberal Arts. I'm grateful that you've made time today for a visit together and to join me and our panelists and about a conversation around promiscuous data. First, some housekeeping notes. So the first one is we have funders to thank for supporting this event, and their names are on this slide. This panel is in conjunction with Medieval Matters Week, which is a series of events coalescing around objects, ideas, materials, the remnants, reinterpretations, visualizations, and contextualizations about the Middle Ages and beyond. As the only non-medievalist on this panel, I do feel slightly like a fish out of water here, but the key facet of today's talk and its broadest applications is about data, and that is something I do generate, understand, and attempt to wrangle time and again. Before I turn things over to our panelists, I'd like to draw your attention to an event tomorrow, held on Zoom, focusing on digital technologies for access and discoverability. You'll see a QR code linking you to the event and registration on the screen. And by demand, and you may have heard it when you came in, I'm happy to share the Medieval Matters playlist, which has been curated by Whearty, which is RIT's college radio station. You'll see the QR code there, and it links you to the playlist. So if you're interested, please check it out. For those of you in gallery today, be sure to check out our exhibition here, which is in the Grid Gallery, and it's called Illuminating the Medieval and the Modern Through Cultural Heritage Imaging, a brief history of innovation and collaboration at RIT. You'll find examples of data in the exhibition, as well as creative practice, including a fantasy short story, and I have a printed copy here, there's one on the wall, inspired by one of the leaves in the exhibition, A Book of Hours. That story was written by DJ Mulcahy, president of RIT's Fantasy Club, so be sure to look at it and write your own ending on the space that's provided there if you choose. So for today, I wanted to start with an introduction as to the title, Promiscuous Data. So this term was one that Will Noel, seated right in front of me, proclaimed as essential for museums to both survive and to thrive. They needed, as he said, to put the data in places where you can find it, making the data, as it were, promiscuous. Will chat more about that shortly, but I think it's worth mentioning at the outset, and here I'm taking cues from Ed Rodley, to think about the word promiscuous or promiscuity and what that actually means. So Rodley looks back to the definition of promiscuous, and it's from the Latin meaning pro or for, and miscere or to mix, so it's for mixing. So promiscuous meant to be indiscriminate or without discrimination. And so promiscuity was about mixing things up. And this idea of propagation, pollination, and seeding is something that I think we all understand in the academy, in libraries, archives, museums, and institutions. So nearly a decade ago, I think it's actually slightly more than that, Will, while at a museum, although he's now at a library, claimed a central part of the missions of museums was to put the data in places where we can find it. So what does that actually mean? What does it mean to find data? What does it mean to put it in places? What does it mean to mix it? What does it mean to bring it together? So I'd like to turn things over now to each of our presenters for their brief remarks about promiscuous data. We'll go in the order that's presented here on the screen, beginning with Will, and they'll each come up to the podium and share a couple slides and thoughts, after which I'll cut them off after 5 to 7 minutes, and then we'll open up for questions. So Dr. Noel, please join me up here.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you for that explanation of promiscuous. It's precisely what I meant. I'm slightly embarrassed about the word now. It has sort of biological overtones that aren't really appropriate. But I think that the point is to make data sticky, and both in terms of making sure it lasts a long time and that it sticks to its users. And I start out with an image of a book, and then I'm thinking of data, and I'm trying to make data as different from a book as I possibly can, and to exploit all of its potentials. Normally, you know, when universities put out their data, they put their data out in interfaces like this. Each institution reinvents their own interface, doing precisely the same thing in various ways bad. I think, in fact, that making data available in a form in which it can be used by professionals on the one hand, but by normal people on the other, as easily as possible and as friction-free as possible, is the answer. And that's why when we released the Archimedes data set that I was talking about yesterday, and somebody that I didn't even know took that data, put it into a Google Maps interface for people to read, I thought that was a sort of an aha moment for me. I did the same thing with the Walters Art Museum's manuscripts. I put them out for other people to use. And of course, different interfaces are good for different things. Some interfaces, like this one, which is T-Pen, is good for transcription. But if you really want to reach a broad public, then very often you're looking at interfaces that an academic wouldn't dream of looking at. There's a PDF online publishing platform called Issue, or there was, and it was hugely used by the Islamic community for publishing all sorts of things. When we digitized our Qurans at the Walters Art Museum, we made PDFs and we put them on Issue, and Issue has a search engine, and the search engine you can search by Arabic word, and you might be searching for something completely different, but nonetheless you will expose a completely new audience to treasures that are otherwise hidden in a gallery somewhere in Baltimore. When we digitized the Walters Art Museum, of course, we put them on the Walters Art Museum's website, but the Walters Art Museum's website was about the 500,000th most popular website in the United States. Flickr was the 10th, so we also put them up on Flickr. And for a brief moment, if you searched for Gospel Book in Flickr, the modest Walters Art Museum manuscript number 4, which you see up there on the top left, beat the Book of Kells for first place on a Google search engine. You really can reach people if you put the data where they're looking, and the same is true of Qurans. I think nearly all the Qurans on the first search page of this Flickr page are from the Walters Art Museum. The data was freely available. It was put where people could use it, and it was published in the public domain, so people could do what they wanted with it, and they did extraordinary things with it. If you have a resource and your community is potentially global, then funny things can happen. We had a provenance project at the University of Pennsylvania, started up by Regan Kladstrup. She had 4 rare book catalogers. They didn't know all there was to know about provenance in the world, so they put up images on Flickr and asked the world to identify them. This is a very obscure publication from the early 16th century of the Epic of Alexander the Great, with words on it that we couldn't read very well. We put it up on Flickr, and somebody says, the name should read Narses Lauginger. The Lauginger family were a wealthy family of merchants at Augsburg. The NL monogram at the bottom of the page points to Narses Lauginger. Number 24 points to the invention of libraries of the Peutinger family at Augsburg, in this case to Christoph Peutinger. The library catalog of U822, which is a common shelf architecture library. So we just put it out there, and someone in the world could identify what it was for us. You can do the same here. We get the same result. Somebody identifies it for us. We put it back into the catalog with that information, and we put the image on Wikipedia. This is one of my favorite ones. It's a 12th century psalter from Augsburg, and I show you an image from Psalm 109. And there's a saint there. And I say that the image is of St. Cesarius. So I get this. Dear Will Noel, I'm the pastor of St. Cesarius, Italy. I have seen on the Flickr site your image, Psalter. I wanted to know if it's the eponymous St. Cesarius, deacon and martyr of Terracina, venerated on the 1st of November. Could you kindly send me a scan of this page? The naivety of it is totally lovely. But it's the sort of question that, so I replied and I said, well, probably not. It's probably the much more famous St. Cesarius of Arles. And he writes back and he says, no, it can't be St. Cesarius of Arles, because St. Cesarius of Arles wasn't killed. And this guy carries a martyr's palm and a crown. I'm sure it's my St. Cesarius, isn't it? At which point you think, oh Lord, I'm a busy curator, do I have to engage in this? And I thought, well, actually, I'll just go and look. So I went to look at the calendar of the manuscript, and 1st of November is All Saints' Day. And so you're thinking you're just going to see All Saints' Day, but actually, no, right at the end, so he's quite right. It says Cesarius of Terracina. I could email him back. I didn't send him a scan of the page, but I took a screenshot and sent it him as an attachment. And on the 1st of November, you can go to YouTube and you can see the celebration of St. Cesarius on the 1st of November in Terracina. And one of those people has to be my priest, and he's probably holding an image in his pocket. And that's really a nice story. Cool Christian dating images. The Handbook of Christian Love. But this is my favorite. This is a little belongs to Celestino Juaristi, Havana, Cuba. Who's going to identify that? Belongs to Celestino Juaristi, Havana, Cuba. That's my grandfather. Where is this book? The book is at the University of Pennsylvania Libraries. You can see the catalog entry for it here. Here is the complete story. My father, Celestino Juaristi, attended UPenn in the late 1930s. He never graduated from Wharton. Here's a story. He must have left the book in his dorm. I'm glad you have it. I hope this information is of value to you. As a side note, the granddaughter of Celestino Juaristi, Paulina Juaristi, my daughter, is applying to UPenn this year. Hopefully you will consider her application. I followed up on this, and actually, she didn't get in. I know. It's not just images where you need to get the data to people. There are data sets, and once a year, I don't know if you guys know this, but the University of Pennsylvania has something called Penn Apps, where people come from all over the country to create apps out of data. So these data sets can be really cool. Our really cool data set was the Schoenberg database of manuscripts, which is a huge database of the provenance of medieval manuscripts. And you can download the entire data set, and they've got 72 hours to make a data set, so they fall asleep. This is in special collections. We give them caffeinated cookies. They keep going. They have fun. And if this works, let's see if this works. That is a video that's not going to work, I think. Can I play? Autoplay. Gosh, that's technical. Autoplay, play. No, it's not going to do it. Anyway, these kids developed an interface, a visualization of the movement of manuscripts over time to various people in various ways, and it was kind of extraordinary just to see it. That's my time. I just want to say that serendipity now is a huge part of discovery, and make sure you reach the global community. Thank you very much.
Next up is Anna, and Anna, you're not using slides, so I'm just going to put back the visual from the beginning, if that's all right. Just so we have something. Oh, actually, we probably wouldn't need anything. That's probably okay. Just on the screen. Yeah. Just notes.
I don't have any slides. I apologize. I'll try to be short so that it's still, so you don't have to pay attention for too long. So. All right. So. My name is Anna Siebach-Larsen. I'm the director of the Russell Hope Robbins Library and Kohler Collins Center at the University of Rochester. Just about 10 minutes, as well as sometimes an eternity away, it feels like, given how seldom we come over here, and hopefully that will happen more often over the next few years. So the question of open data for me is a question of values. Which values guide our work? Which collections do we value? Whose histories and stories do we value? And whose access and use do we value? Who do we want to empower, and how do we want to empower them? When I think about open data, one of the primary values that I consider is that of sustainability, which I believe should be central to all of our discussions and our decisions about data and people's access to it. I think about sustainable labor, sustainable infrastructure, and a sustainable environment. So just a few examples of kind of how and why I think about these questions in regard to my own work. In the spring of 2020, some of you might remember what happened then. When the pandemic started, there were a lot of calls that everything needed to be digitized. People needed information, they needed collections, they couldn't get to libraries. It was like all of the calls that we had been making for so long about the importance of digitization and open access to data, people were hearing. People were finally waking up to the possibilities afforded by data, and they wanted more of it. At the same time, at my library system, we were getting all of these calls for digitization, for data, for sharing. The majority of the staff was fully or partially furloughed, including our digitization department, which is one person, our metadata department, our processing archivist, most of our books and special collections, our patron services department, and our digital initiatives department. So people wanted this data, they wanted this digitization, and we had nobody who could get it for them. I spent a lot of time with the scanner as one of the few people who weren't furloughed during that time period. Digitization, data, these things require people, and what do you do when you don't have those people on hand? Or what do you do if they don't have the time to do the work? There are a few major projects that I am responsible for that could or should have enormous potential when it comes to open data. One of these is the Middle English Text Series, which is an open access and also print publication that we run out of the Russell Hope Robbins Library. So one of the things that we do with this over the last several years, we've been working extremely hard to upgrade our digital editions, including the reader that we have, the platform on which it's built. I'd have pictures for you, but it's not done yet, so I can't show it to you. Plus, we're in the middle of intense discussions about font, which it turns out is a very thorny question. We had a very long discussion yesterday about the shape of an E. METS has a history of last-minute frantic upgrades, only made when our institutional hand was forced because of imminent Drupal failures and upgrades. When we don't invest in sustainable infrastructure for delivering our data, we set ourselves and our users up for failure time and time again. Maintenance and preservation are not exciting to donors, but when it comes to something like upgrading the Middle English Text Series, or I was also thinking about a team of international volunteers that has been working since the Russian invasion of Ukraine to scrape websites and to save Ukrainian cultural heritage. Servers, people don't like to fund them, but these are things that are necessary for us to continue to have access to data. I'm also responsible for our medieval and early modern manuscript collections at the University of Rochester. We are actively acquiring and actively digitizing manuscripts, but we have one person who can catalog them, and that person is me, and we have reduced our metadata department as well. We only recently hired somebody to oversee digital preservation and digital asset management. Donors really like collections. They really like pretty books. They really like to give money for them. Administrators can be more easily funded to fund tech positions. So if you say you need a programmer, that's easier to persuade than to say you need a cataloger, right? What about the technical services side of open data? Open data relies upon a host of people and positions with decidedly non-flashy job descriptions. They are overworked and often underpaid. How do we make these positions sustainable? Finally, sustainable environment. As we expand our digital footprint kind of collectively, we have to think about the impact on the environment. So I was part of a subcommittee for rare books and manuscripts, part of the American Library Association, where we were thinking about this really carefully. Open data is not carbon neutral. Cultural heritage institutions must really start to grapple with the environmental cost of our preservation practices, whether those are our physical or our digital preservation practices. What is the environmental cost of the servers that host our data? How do we balance that against, say, the cost of researcher travel, or against the cost of resources needed for physical preservation and conservation? I don't have answers to any of these questions at all. I think, or I hope, that we are at a point in which the question of whether data should be open is no longer a question. The answer is obviously yes. The question is how we build, maintain, and sustain data, and the people who create and maintain it, as well as the planet that we live on. And I think that if we're not having those kinds of discussions, then we're not really grappling with the ramifications and also the values that should be undergirding our impulse to make data open and accessible to all people. So hopefully that's something we can talk about through the rest of this panel.
So next up, we have Sarah Thompson from the College of Art and Design.
So just the one slide for me, but I will be sure to talk for the full 5 to 7 minutes, so no worries there. I divided my points into 4, and all of them are pretty big topics, big categories, so I hope that we will continue discussion about them later on. And I am coming from the point of view of someone who is a researcher, who is an educator, as opposed to being a curator or an archivist or a librarian. So I'm thinking a lot about use and what happens in terms of use. So the first thing I wanted to bring up was digitization and collection access, because something that I have noticed in my own research, something I notice in publication, is that when museums are able to adopt, or libraries are able to adopt an open access data policy, then often people pay more attention to their output, which kind of makes sense because you as a researcher are not only getting access to this sort of wonderful trove of information, but also you can publish that without, say, having to pay someone to photograph it for you and then pay a photography use fee, which used to be the expectation, and those fees could really add up. And it tends to be that well-funded institutions are the institutions that are able to adopt this kind of policy. And it comes because of issues that my predecessors have already brought up in terms of not just the cost of, say, the technical materials to be able to scan a manuscript, but also in terms of the labor that comes into play when you're talking about needing to actually get it scanned and manage all the data that comes with it and answer public's questions about it. So there is a great deal of investment that needs to take place. Smaller institutions, less prominent institutions are often not able to do that. And you see a really wide range of accessibility when you're looking, say, for manuscript examples to show in your Illuminated Manuscripts class. The Topkapi Palace Museum has a massive collection of Islamic manuscripts that are largely not available in a digitized form. And I don't know if they have the funding, I don't know if there is the public interest to actually make that kind of thing available. And what you tend to see happen as a result of that is that already well-funded collections tend to have their collections become more prominent, and those that are less well-funded tend to kind of sink out of people's recognition. And it can have a significant impact on diversity as well. Often less well-funded collections are collections that may manage things that are not as prominent or have not been treated as prominently. And that means that you have a situation where, say, a lot of the information about the Benin bronzes is controlled by the British Museum. Is that really a fair actor in terms of how we get to understand that material? The second point I wanted to bring up was about access to originals. You don't see this happen all the time, but you do see it happen where the idea of being able to offer the public a facsimile in a digital form, maybe increasingly substituted for access to the original, and where you may have to, as a researcher, go through greater hoops of justification in order to be able to see the original object. And much of that kind of depends on the attitude in the institution that you are trying to collaborate with. Some are simply more restrictive and perhaps always have been, and look at digitization as now a replacement for what they used to have, which were giant books of photographs that they would pass you, that you had to look at before you could actually request access to the original. Others may be excited that there is more interest in seeing the original and may try to make it more available. But I have actually seen it happen where people have become more protective of the original because they're able to say, well, you have an adequate substitute. The third point I wanted to make is about funding models and data control. And I am sure that most people here are already familiar with this, but the traditional method, the traditional model, I should say, of research in the humanities was very much, sole researcher, sole publisher. You tended to work by yourself. You sought grants. The grants were typically pretty small, especially if you compare them to grants in the sciences. And the grants usually had relatively little control as to what you were actually going to do with that money. And so you might use that to fund personal travel related to research. You might use that to pay for publication fees or pay for a publication subvention. But you usually had to do kind of a write-up at the end of your grant period that says, you gave me $5,000 and I spent it on image copyrights. If you are a humanities scholar and you are now collaborating with people in the sciences, as many people do who are digital humanists these days, and people do who are art historians as well, then you're often talking about a team-based model where you may not be the PI. You're often talking about something that might be government funded or funded by a major granting agency that is much more interested in that data. And you may be also talking about concern about profit from that data. And as an art historian, people never used to be interested in what we did because they just assumed that there would be no money in it for them. And so they might throw you $5,000, $10,000, but they typically didn't give you lots and lots of money. And it is simply a very, very different picture if you're, say, looking to pursue a grant with, say, the NSF or something like that. And I give an example, a colleague of mine who passed away a number of years ago named Andrew Tallon. He had undertaken some LiDAR scanning at Notre Dame in Paris, and this was in the late 2000s. I think he did those scans around 2006 to 2008. The scans were funded by multiple people. I think there was some Mellon money in there. He was at Vassar. I think there was some Vassar money in there, and I'm sure that there was personal money in there. So he died in 2018, and then Notre Dame burns in 2019. And suddenly there was a massive amount of public attention, and there were publications, nationwide publications, that emphasized that Andrew had done those scans, that they were out there, that they existed. And suddenly there was a lot of interest in those scans, even though they were not actually the most recent scans that had been done, but the sense that this is data that could be now valuable, that someone saw use for it. And then there was dissension about, well, who actually had the rights to that material? The researcher has passed away, multiple agencies put in money for it. What is to be done here? So, funding models and data control. I also know colleagues who are currently working with teams that are based in Paris on Notre Dame, that are government funded, French government funded, who are not PIs in these projects and who actually have data embargoed, like they're not allowed the right of first publication of their data. So they have to wait until the government approves, they have to wait until the team leaders publish it first. And then the last thing I want to bring up, this is very specific to being an architectural historian, and it's about digital tools and the collection of data. Because a building is not in copyright, and it's much more difficult to try to claim some sort of a copyright on a building than it is to claim something that's not part of public space or to claim something that is made within the last 90 years or so period of copyright. But buildings did used to be able to control more because it was much more obvious if someone was collecting specific data and they needed specific kinds of access to be able to do it. And as technology has advanced substantially, and I currently have like LiDAR on my phone and could technically go into a building and produce a data scan from it, what do I owe the building, if anything? These are places that are often very underfunded themselves. I could potentially go in and make a scan of a building that was of very high quality, and I could digitally composite it into the background of a movie or a video game. I could make an app that I made money from that was about touring that building, that site. What does the building do? And do they actually have a right to enforce control of data of a site that they did not make, they did not build, it may have existed for hundreds and hundreds of years? But what does, what ethically does one do in that kind of a situation? Because I certainly would love LiDAR data sets of all of the buildings that I go and visit. And I would love to be able to collect them, but I don't know that the buildings are always that happy, or the managers of the buildings are always that happy that that access is so free from this point. So those are my remarks, and hopefully we can pick them up later on.
And our final presenter, and then we'll turn things over for discussion and questions, is Bridget Whearty, who has a new book that is on our browsing table. Oops, I hit the wrong button. Hold one moment. There we go. Digital Code Ecology. So if you haven't checked it out, it is actually checked out of our library right now. So someone is using it, but we have a copy here in our browsing library. So be sure to check that out, Bridget.
It's really weird to have a book out in the world, I have to say, because before the ideas were actually published, I would get kind of huffy and be like, oh, how come this person who's working on digital manuscripts isn't citing me? And now that it's out in the world, it's like, oh shit, people are reading this. It's like, it's a very weird thing. Yeah, I have a book that came out about a year ago. And it grew out of my postdoc at Stanford University Libraries as a fellow in data curation for medieval studies. That postdoc is a really weird world because it's created for subject area PhDs in the humanities and social sciences to kind of move sideways into academic libraries. Which means that when I suddenly began work as a data curator, I knew a lot less about responsible data curation and data management than probably most of the students in this room. I think the most important task that I got to work on while doing this postdoc, important for me, for shaping my career, for changing how I think about this work, was taking these different data sets of descriptive metadata created for different digital manuscripts, digitized at institutions around the world, and I was sort of trying to draw them together and combine them. And it was this sort of great and weird experience. And I'm giving you one of my favorite open data quotes here by John Unsworth about when data is made in one environment and then reused in another place, it's never going to be dressed quite right. It's kind of going to be like Cinderella in pajamas in Union Station. And one of the really kind of telling moments of this early in my postdoc for me was I was working with another libraries postdoc at Johns Hopkins and taking all of the data for the Roman de la Rose Digital Library and remixing it to reuse in this experimental digital manuscripts index I was working on. And we were, writing the transform, and we suddenly realized that there was no author tag because the Roman de la Rose Digital Library at that moment was about a single medieval work. It was like hundreds of copies of that medieval work, but just the one. So they didn't need to include the author because if you're looking at that text, it is. But then pulling it into this other index of manuscripts meant that the weirdness of data reuse became very visible to me. Of course, that's an easy fix. You can just write the code to put the author tag in. But it was kind of one of those moments of oh, we can share our data, but our data is always going to be kind of weird in resharing. It's also where I realized that manuscript studies is really difficult for sharing your data in terms of description, because as a field, we don't use the same terminology the same way among ourselves. So some people will use vellum to describe one thing and parchment to describe something else. And then down the road, another institution will use it the exact opposite way. And then when you try to pull them all together, they kind of begin to feel weird and nebulous. So that's kind of where I came from as a postdoc. It was really exciting and weird. It inspired me to completely change my career trajectory and write about digital manuscripts instead of Middle English poetry, although in my book there's still a lot of Middle English poetry. And now that my book is out, I'm doing something a little bit different. So Will said that when you put your data out in the world, funny things can happen. I'm one of those funny things that's happening with open and mixable data. There's no organized source book for LGBTQ sources from the medieval period. It just doesn't exist, especially if you want to get outside of Western Europe. And I do. Like, Latin's great. I'm happy to work on it, but I also want Hebrew and Arabic and Korean and all of that. So these are our project principles. If you want to hear more about the project, I'm talking about it a lot this afternoon at Rochester, the University of Rochester. Efficiency, our top principle there, is kind of a shorthand for wherever possible, reuse existing data. We're not at the point where we're going to fund digitizations of sources. We want to use the manuscripts that are already out there. Wherever possible, we need to use transcriptions that are already out there, editions that are already out there. We need freely shared open data to do this kind of impossibly large, really exciting work. We're also thinking of ourselves as a conduit. So we're taking people's data and we want to make it shareable in a way that other people can download it and use it and remix it, which is kind of part of the sustainability idea. How do we make it so anybody who wants to copy anything that we've gathered can, and they can pull it down and they can do whatever they want with it. The second principle is sort of where things get interesting, because there's a lot of shitty data out there, just in general. And when you start talking about queer and trans medieval things, there's even more shitty data. And I'm just going to give you my kind of favorite telling example here. This is a poem that was written in the early 6th century in North Africa. The manuscript that is at the very top of the page there was written in the early 8th century in central Italy. It was first published in 1759, and it has never been published with the right first word. The 1759 edition is at the bottom of the page. If you look at the top and the bottom, you'll see the bottom slide says monstrum, and the top says nostrum. And it's a shitty misogynist poem. I'm not going to save it by pointing out this problem, but there's a really big difference between saying someone is a monster and saying someone is one of ours. And it blows my mind that I think I'm the first person who's ever noticed this. So we can't just use the modern editions here because they're wrong. Every modern translation is wrong. Every piece of scholarship that has ever been published about this poem is wrong. And that's why we have to contain digital manuscripts. That's why we have to be careful about accurate data as well as open data. And my final point that I want to raise about open data here is the second from the bottom, or the fourth from the top, however you want to put it. This one, by all rights, I should not have access to. It is a fully digitized, incredibly important manuscripts library in Leiden, and it is closed. It's pay for play. I asked my university librarian, who's in charge of such things, for the kind of institution that I work at, it would be a one-time fee of $15,117. My university can't afford that. They also don't sell individual subscriptions, not that I could afford that if they did. The only reason that I have this access is because some of my collaborators do work at an institution that has that kind of access. So there's officially open data, there's unopened data that we sort of share amongst ourselves. But that manuscript will never be part of our project. One of the things I'm interested in doing in the descriptive metadata that we're wrapping around our texts is to point out where things are. So we can use this because it's Creative Commons. We can use this because it's fair use and free. We can't use this because it's locked, but it's free to use. Go sign in and enter the project and work with it there. Or we can't use this, it's too expensive. You probably can't use it either, but it exists. So I think that Like we need, like I can't do this work without open data, but I think it's an opportunity for us to think about the data that are still closed and why they're closed and what that ultimately says about value and use. And the increasing invisibility of a place like Leiden that for good local reasons had to make it pay for play, but in doing so has really locked their collection in ways that work like mine can't engage with it. Right.
Okay, so for this next portion, we're going to open up for questions. So we'll have the two microphones that are at the table now, and then I'll bring this over so we'll have a third. So if people have questions, please just raise your hand. And if the question's for all of us, indicate that. If it's for one of us, indicate that. So let me get a slide back up. Okay, so who would like to start with a question? Izzy.
So my question is, so for feeling a lot of my time with music studies has been dealing with data and how to present that data in a well, thank you. So now this microphone is going to be the broken microphone. And one thing I'm wondering about, especially when starting digital curation projects for museums, is it better to get as much data about the information of objects in your collection out there as possible, or is it better to engage with longer projects where you're almost creating digital exhibits and contextualizing that data and making it interactive and more, I guess, accessible or interesting to the user?
I've been asked to start, so I'll start.
I said, would you like to start? I didn't. Yeah.
Happy to. I think the overcuration of data by repositories is a barrier to access. I think that making materials available with minimum but responsible metadata as quickly as possible so that other people can reuse it is a very good idea. I think that then, after you've done that, if you want to curate it and present it in more sophisticated ways, then that's your right, and perhaps depending on the mission of your institution, your responsibility. So at Princeton, whenever we digitize something, it goes straight into a pre-existing catalog record. It's just a straightforward MARC catalog record, and frankly, particularly for medieval manuscripts, they're very, read my lips, very Spartan. But they are digitized, and then they also go into our digital platform, which is curated, but that takes more time. But they're out there as soon as they can be.
So from the point of view of someone who is a user of that data, I much prefer Will's scenario, where it's as much as is possible is made accessible, rather than focusing more selectively on curating individual monuments or curating individual records. I would add to that I've seen examples, plenty of examples, where someone at an institution has curated an online show, say, where they've put a lot of time and care using the technology that is currently available, and a few years down the road, it becomes inaccessible because something about technology or the platform has changed, or because it was a particular curator's pet project, and now that curator has moved on and no one has adopted the control of that page. And so all of that effort, that labor, tends to go to waste over time. I mean, it's certainly useful for outreach for the public, but if you're not really thinking about public outreach and you're just thinking about, say, trying to do, quote unquote, a good job with that material, that good job is often going to fall by the wayside.
Oh, you already know. Trying to think of something to add to that. I absolutely agree with both of those. One thing maybe that I'll say is that I think that it's really a temptation to want to hold on to things until we feel like they're good enough to put out there. So with the Middle English text series, we've been having a lot of conversations about the metadata that we want to add to things, and we have a lot of conversations in which we ultimately draw a line and say, we're making these available for people to use, and then they can add additional metadata, for their own projects. Like if it's a project like what Bridget is doing, we don't have to provide everything for them. We just have to provide enough, and we have to get it out there. Otherwise, it will never happen, right? So, so this vision, this impossible vision of completeness is just that, it's impossible. And putting it out there is the most important thing.
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting early challenges with my postdoc, besides having to learn everything, was to kind of get over the lone humanist perfectionism. Like I felt like I had to write the perfect transform. If I lost anything, if I changed anything, I was like betraying my duty to this book and to the public and to the world and to future researchers, and like the entire edifice of higher education would come crashing down and it was my fault, which is a little myopic. But having to learn about like good enough and letting it go and putting it out in the world. And I realized at a certain point that any error I made, if anybody even ever noticed it, might be a wonderful gift to a researcher 40 years down the line, because they could write something complaining about the shitty job I did, and I was like letting a space for scholarship happen. I think now, kind of on the other end of it, sort of looking at other people's data, I'm even more aware of the kind of imperfection of metadata, of reuse of data, because nobody's going to anticipate me coming along and being like, ooh, here's the top text of this like 8th century palimpsest, and there's a trans saint in there, and I'm excited about that. Like the St. Catherine's Monastery didn't anticipate me. So that light metadata out in the world and just being like, go little book, go do something weird I can't think of, I think for me was freeing as a creator of data and now as a reuser of it.
My question is about deepthink and AI being either a benefit or a hindrance at both the institutional side, but also from the researcher's perspective as well. And I was wondering if any of you had thoughts about this when it comes to like access, collections, and the way things are being searched or sought using these tools.
So thank you, Leah, for the question. And so one thing I would say, at least in terms of our project with multispectral imaging, and I'm looking at Roger, who's a collaborator, Roger Easton, on the Misha project, is thinking about how can we streamline our workflow and maybe not process faster, but are there ways that we can process data in ways that can make that a little bit less cumbersome. And I'm reminded of a challenge grant that was put out, and Roger, fill in with gaps here if I've made any, please fill them in. But Brent Searles, who's at University of Kentucky, spearheaded this funding initiative earlier this year. Data was released in March of the Herculaneum scrolls, which are damaged by fire from the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 CE. So he was part of this collaborative that issued a challenge to people to try to use AI to efficiently recognize some of the characters on this charred, for lack of a better word, document artifact. And they did release results this past week, and they claimed it to be a success. But what needs to happen in order for those AI capabilities to become more successful and thoughtful is we need data sets to train them on, and then we need to have human beings who actually carefully use those data sets to create the neural networks to then train the computers to then do the work of humans. officially. I mean, that's what they would be doing. And I'm not sure that, personally, I'm not sure that that's where I want our students to invest their time, effort, and energy. I think in terms of a dalliance of trying to do something splashy and to raise awareness, it's helpful. But I think ultimately, I'm more interested in people making decisions about humanistic documents than I am about a computer doing it. Full stop. New paragraph. I think things like AI and the use of like DALL-E and artistic practice in museums and kind of showing what can be done if you put some words together in a mashup and then, you know, you have this new work of art created by a computer. I think that's interesting, but again, it's, you know, it's fun as a visitor engagement piece, but it really kind of is thoughtless with regard to creative practice and actual people who make things. Not that your question was thoughtless. I'm just giving my perspective.
So I'm enormously excited about AI. I think it's going to rock our world.
I knew I didn't like you at first.
And I think that you know, all those ways in which information is going out right now, you can't possibly as a human being track it all, but as a computer you can. And what new things you can come out when you've got really, really, really deep data sets is totally fascinating. It's really exciting. We all need to lean into AI. My son already has got caught doing it in his exam. And you know, I mean, it's more easy to articulate caution than it is to embrace with enthusiasm and be articulate at the same time, because the future is unwritten. The caution, I think, is vested interest determining what the data sets are, the black box of the algorithms that you might not be able to repeat, and the lack of footnoting that happens when that happens. But I think that I think that is really dangerous, but I think it's also really exciting. It's really going to fundamentally transform the way we do business. Yeah.
So my approach to AI, I think, is very William Morris inspired, actually, where the idea that, you know, machines should be doing tasks that are onerous or kind of overly physically exhausting for humans to do. But otherwise, I would prefer that they not be doing the kind of creative work that we do. I have concerns about, for lack of a better word, the trendiness of AI, that it seems that granting agencies, that news agencies, that our own institution have kind of jumped very, very quickly to fund positions related to AI, to offer grants related to AI and AI exploration, but that we haven't settled a lot of things about ethics relating to AI. And that, you know, initial things like ChatGPT being kind of released for public use, you know, a lot of that is done without consideration of things like copyright, ownership, footnoting. What is going into the algorithm that is producing responses? How is this information going to be used? So I think that there's a great deal to settle. Unfortunately, I don't know that we have, say, legislators in place who understand what the implications of ethics and AI actually are. So I don't have a high hope for, say, legal bookends to be placed around AI use. So I'm not really sure how to proceed then. I think that there are certainly a lot of exciting things that have been done that can be done. I just have a lot of concern about where this is leading and if we, in fact, can say where it is leading.
Kind of hoping we weren't all going to have to say something about this. So, well, I'll say a little bit. I think that my hesitation around AI has a lot to do kind of with what Sarah was saying in terms of maybe the lack of care in which we're taking about thinking through what it might be able to do, and also the ways in which funding is being funneled toward it at the expense of things that still need to be done and things that need to be done well in order for AI to work well, right? And for AI to be productive and helpful and useful. I think that I don't quite know what to think about AI because I feel like a lot of the discussions that we have about it are more discussions about the discourse around AI rather than what it can actually do for us. The things that I've seen around, say, like paleography, they all come to the point at which, developers say, and here's where we have to have people now figure it out, And so I guess that I'm still kind of waiting to see what it actually can do for us. And I hope that we can have kind of concrete conversations around ways in which we can use it to support our work rather than supplanting our work and maybe making us more able to choose where we want to put our time. I'm a little worried about, or maybe I hesitate, apparently I had a lot to say about this and I didn't think I did. I hesitate around the idea that we can use it to replace creative work. I also hesitate around the idea that it can replace work that we think of as like grunt work or uninteresting work, because I think that work also is extremely difficult and extremely valuable. And so I think that it's also a place for us to think about like the way in which we value different kinds of work, and who we value as well. So that was a really long non-answer, and for me to say, I don't know what to think about AI, so. Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be at all helpful for always here. And I'm kind of a one-trick pony. So like whenever I'm doing a thing, that's the only thing I'm doing. So I can't tell you what I think, but I can tell you about this really wonderful article by Sonia Drimmer and Christopher Nygren that came out in the International Journal for Digital Art History this year. It's called Art History and AI, 10 Axioms. And one of the points that they make that I really appreciate is they're thinking through like, how can AI be used responsibly to help with the minimal metadata problem? Like how can it be, so I'm just gonna read you some quotes of what they said because it's great. Millions of objects remain obscure in museums, archives, and cultural institutions that lack the funding to catalog them in a rich and meticulous manner. And AI has been promoted as being able to plug those gaps where resources do not exist to support human labor, which connects over to Anna's point. But then they go on and point out that AI is trained on past patterns. So it really depends on the kind of descriptive sets you're training them on. And they point out, especially in art history, there are significant problems with colonialist and racist and sexist and homophobic and all of those phobics terminology. And if we're training our indexing or describing AI on like the racist shit that we're trying to leave behind in critical cataloging, then we're actually using it to make our lives harder and worse. And I think that's kind of the really beautiful point that Sonia and Christopher are making that I think is really worth chewing over.
Thank you so much.
I'm just curious if I can also give my input on the whole AI thing. So as someone who is currently museum studies major, but also an artist, I think AI has the potential to be useful, but I think the issue with AI is the user. As someone who is chronically online, I see how AI is used often, and it's not used in a sophisticated manner. It's used to find shortcuts. It's used to cheat. It's used to get easy access. It's not used for genuine hard work, which I think if used properly, it could be a good tool, but it's just simply not. And I'm a bit traditional in the sense that I think if you want to find something out, if you want to research something, you do it yourself. You put the work into it yourself. I didn't spend my whole life learning to do art just to have machines and AI take over that and be claimed as art when there's no thought behind it. it's actually pretty hurtful. And I've seen it harm a lot of industries, not just art, but also like voice acting, animation. It's erasing a lot of roles and a lot of effort and love that people put into their work. And I think that's something that shouldn't be erased, as personally, as someone that enjoys the creativity of people.
All right, hi. That was like really well spoken, might I say. But so moving on from AI, unfortunately, I mean, we can always go back to it. So I wrote my idea down, but I had a question. I feel as though we can sometimes approach the idea of digitization with this like pre-existing idealization that the public or the majority will already have access to these collections, objects, and works through technology. And I think when we consider marginalized groups like the impoverished and those without access or physical means, do you find it under your realm of responsibility to help this content get to them in alternative manners, be it outreach or youth programs, et cetera? And I also feel like we talk about lack of visibility and support within the humanities, and do you consider that implementation of programs within younger generations will generate more positive interest and relevancy around your respective fields of work? Because I feel like a lot of policy can overlook the arts and humanities, but we hold history that is relevant to our growth as a species. But I feel as though there isn't much consideration within primary education. And do you overall consider this an aspect of your responsibility, again, of increasing awareness and access of collections, information, and data sets on your projects?
So there's a couple of parts to that. So we could maybe take up whatever part we are most inclined to take up. So I think one of the points that you touch on, Renee, about providing access to people who may not have access to online sources and materials, that's one of the areas. One thing that I think is really interesting to think about, and I don't know kind of where the path leads, but one of the things that we often do in museum work is we create sort of like here, like our online, our on-site exhibit and our online exhibit. So the exhibit that's in the gallery here also has an online version of it. And so this isn't an answer, this is just kind of an added thought to what you were talking about. And there's the sense that, oh, when we put it online, that it's for everyone. And I think that that's problematic to think like, who is everyone? And the world will see it. So to your point, there are large swaths of people who will never see our in-person exhibit, who will never see that online exhibit. And I'm not saying that's some kind of material that everyone in the world needs to see, but I'm riffing on your idea that the sense that there are communities that are not included in online materials, both in terms of the content, but also in terms of the audience. And so who is the work ultimately for? If we're creating an online version of an exhibit and we only share it with so many people, then that's really what we're doing, is just providing a mirror of an on-site experience for a community that maybe is in Rochester here and a community that maybe has the link, but it's not for everyone, it's not for the world. So just adding to your thought.
Two great things there. I think that a lot of institutions in the United States have the cultural heritage of cultures around the world, and it's their responsibility to reconcile themselves to that responsibility. And I think that digitization of collections is certainly a huge step in that direction. I think now the next step for institutions is to problematize their relationship with these communities and to realize that it's not enough just to put a digital image out into the world, but to really engage with those communities and let them own that data and work with that data in ways that it reaches people that don't necessarily have access to a computer. And that bespeaks a level of outreach that traditionally universities haven't been interested in, although museums have. And another another aspect of that is sort of the age range of people. Universities are very good. I don't know about RIT, so a lot of the institutions that I've worked for are very good at talking to themselves, and post-custodial work or reaching out into the community is something that we simply have to do. I mean, the notion that we should, you know, so step one is to digitize your own stuff and put it on your website. Step two is to digitize your own stuff and put it on somebody else's website. Step three is to digitize somebody else's stuff and put it on your website. And step four is to have an independent portal, largely established by users, that has access to all this material. But that still doesn't cut the mustard. But one of the issues that we have to face is that cultural heritage, however you want to define it, and the resources to advocate for it, digitize it and look after it, they're appallingly out of balance. And so I do think it is for larger institutions, better endowed institutions, to do more post-custodial work and to help smaller boats float.
I would add to that in the United States, traditionally, cultural heritage, certainly art history, has been thought of as a kind of province of the elite, that it is not something that is necessary. And I know that the majority of my students, the first time that they take a class in art history is when they come to college, that it's simply excluded from K through 12 education. Humanities are increasingly excluded from K through 12 education. Art education is underfunded and is, you know, if people have access to art education beyond a teacher who visits their elementary school class, you know, once a month for a special Friday, then that's also pretty unusual. So I think that in terms of outreach, that there need to be some fundamental changes, at least in the United States, which is really the country that I can only speak for here. But in terms of how we think about K through 12 education, you know, that this is something where we have the greatest chance of reaching the largest number of people, but it is a place that the arts are increasingly excluded from.
Yeah, I think I really love everything that's been said so far. I think about this a lot in terms of my responsibility overseeing medieval collections at a wealthy private university in the city of Rochester, right? A university with a really problematic relationship with the city that does not give as much back to the city as it really should. And thinking about how we can then make our collections truly accessible and open to people. One way is to take the collections to them. So whether that's taking collections and doing programming at public libraries, going to not just bringing schools to campus, but taking things to elementary schools, to junior highs, to high schools, University of Rochester. You know, just on a really practical level, it's really hard to get to, right? It's really hard to park there. We all know that. That's the stereotype about U of R, but it's true. Our buildings are really inaccessible, and that makes our collections inaccessible as well. And so it's not just about digitizing them, but it's also about taking them to people out there in the community. And I'm really glad that Will brought up post-custodial work, because I think that another aspect to it is going out into the community and empowering people to digitize their own archives, their own collections, and to then not take them for ourselves at our institutions, but just to say, we have these resources and now we're giving them to you, and we will help you use them, and then you can do with your archives, with your histories, with your stories, what you want. You know, I think we come from a place of privilege, and so it's our responsibility. It is really our responsibility to empower other people to have control over those stories and histories.
I love your question. I also think I'm a little bit of an outlier, because the question about like outreach and primary levels of education, I mean, like, the content that I'm excited to share with people is kind of illegal to talk about to kids in primary school in lots of states. And high school, and yeah. Like, a lot of the medieval content I'm trying to share is illegal to teach in Florida, and various other places. But so I'm kind of stuck with digital at this point, but I'm thinking a lot about making things accessible in the ways that I can. So there are really great programs out there for dealing with digital manuscripts and doing transcriptions, and they don't work on mobile phones. So I won't use them because I'm trying to think about how can I get information to people. I can get it to them on cell phones and I can get it to them on tablets. So how we share this information has to be that way. My project also comes from a lot of frustration with LGBTQ medieval studies. Really good research has been happening in it for longer than I've been alive, but that's all secondary sources, and it's so hard to get a hold of the primary sources. That's the step I feel like I can do. But I also don't think that compiling a bunch of obscure medieval sources is going to save the world. I think artists will save the world. So my end users that I really dream about for Always Here are students and teachers and people like me, but artists and activists. Because there are these 3 love letters between medieval nuns that are incredible. Me putting them online is great. Me showing them in the manuscript is great. You know what's better? A composer. Setting them to music, making a duet, having living human voices sing this love language back and forth to each other. That's what I want. If we're thinking about how to make queer and trans medieval content useful to queer and trans people today, it's gonna be through artists. So I need to make a site that is usable and appealing and interesting to people who can use this as the raw data for their work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense.
I just have a quick question for Bridget. Why do you think that the first word in that manuscript was continually incorrect, despite each scholar seemingly having access to the source document? And how do you go about fixing that mistake?
So I'm figuring out why. Still, I'm working on an article on it. So I think it's actually a really interesting thing about the limits of access in the 18th century, actually. So the chunks in the middle are handwritten copies, and I think the printer was reliant on multiple copies, and he was in Amsterdam, and the 8th century manuscript was in Paris, and I think kind of being able to get there was a real problem. So he had to use what he could reach. And then, so that's step 1. And then step 2 is the Latin's funky. Because it flickers back and forth between, so nostrum is gender neutral, and then the rest of the line uses feminine forms. So I think that early modern text editors were like, whoa, these medieval people are terrible at Latin. We're gonna make this all easily feminine. But in 2023, we can totally understand they/she. So I think it's that, we have a better understanding of the flexibility of gender in language, so we can see the poem for what it is. And I was in Vancouver screwing around with digital manuscripts when I was bored because I had COVID. And that's how I found this thing in Paris. And then I was opening up a tab and looking at the University of Heidelberg. And then I was getting my partner to get me access to the University of Leiden site. So we have a kind of access that is unfathomable to the early modern printers. And I think we have an understanding of gender that makes it so we can finally do right by this really weird but fascinating poem and every other thing that's like it that's out there that hasn't gotten that attention yet.
Thank you.
Well, it's 12:15 exactly, so please join me in thanking our panelists for their comments and you all for the discussion. If you didn't get to ask a question of somebody, we'll be around for a little while, so please feel free to come up. Feel free to come up and ask questions. And we also have refreshments, so if you didn't grab any before, please make use of those. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.